Welcome back, Softball Speakeasy fans. My name is Raine Wilson. I am your host. And if you're new here, like I said, my name is Raine. I am a former Duke softball player turned analyst and broadcaster. My co host, Kelly Torres, is a graduate assistant coach at Clemson, also a former Duke softball player. And like I said, if you're new here, the whole goal of the show is to cover Duke and Clemson, of course, but also follow the 2025 storylines across college softball, providing you unfiltered access to the life of a broadcaster and the life of a coach at the highest level of softball. So today is kind of the next phase of that. We have a very, very special guest who you likely know now is the one, the only Cassidy Curd, one of the best pitchers in the country. I will be speaking with her and just got done with that conversation. Absolutely incredible episode. I would share this with any young athlete. Cassidy has such a wise perspective on softball and her mental approach. She gets very vulnerable about struggles and adversity and just provides an inside look at what it takes to play softball at a high level and to bounce back from self-doubt and fear. It is one of probably my favorite episode we've ever recorded at Softball Speakeasy because the vulnerability and the lessons learned are just incredible. And with that said, Kelly Torres, next week will have a guest of her own. And so this week it will be me and Cassidy Curd having an incredible conversation about her story, her dreams, and how you deal with self-doubt, adversity, and then where she sees this Duke team in 2025. I think you all will like this. Please like, subscribe, comment what you think, share with your friends. This is one of our favorite episodes of all time. So without further ado, welcome to episode 5 of season 3 of Softball Speakeasy. Alrighty, folks, it is time. It is long overdue, but we have a very, very, very special guest today that, hey, maybe if Cass likes it, we'll even have her back on more. But Cassidy Curd joins the show, one of the best pitchers in the country, best players in the country. Honestly, my opinion, one of the best people in the country. I'll run through who Cassidy is by a resume, but we'll dig into who she is off the softball field, her journey to Duke, her journey to the Women's College World Series last year, how she's changed her game, and so much more in this show. But Cassidy is from Florida, a Florida girl, a lefty pitcher from Duke, began her freshman season at Duke in 2023. All she did was have a 1.65 ERA, 18-3 record, and 127 innings pitched. Also, through a historic 7-inning no-hitter against Clemson, first freshman to ever do it in the ACC tournament. And then, oh, by the way, her sophomore year took the team to the Women's College World Series for the first time in program history. And then, of course, this year has stepped into a veteran role, had an incredible season thus far that we will dig into. And then I have to note, this is not something you can Google, but an incredible woman, incredible friend, incredible human being. And we are so lucky to have her. We're here with us today. So Cassidy, welcome to Softball Speakeasy.
Thank you for having me. I am so excited to be here. I've been watching since its start, and I'm just excited to be part of it.
Well, Cassie, we are so happy to have you. You have been our number one requested guest, and it shouldn't have taken this long, but here we are. And before we dig into softball, who is Cassidy Curd? For folks who maybe are new to the show, who are new to us, who are you, both softball wise and off the field?
Softball wise, I am a pitcher for Duke University. I'm from South Florida. South Florida native, love it there. Gonna go back. I'm an avid reader. I like to write. Um, Public policy major. I'm a junior. Want to end up going to law school post college as well as continuing on my softball journey wherever that takes me as well.
Favorite book that you'd recommend to our listeners out there?
I just finished the Throne of Glass series. So if you're
Okay.
a fantasy into that type of thing, me and our athletic trainer read them. We read them together. So highly recommend that. And then outside of that, I'll go outside of the fantasy realm. But this is it's a child's book. It's called The Boy, the Fox, the Mole, and the Horse.
Okay.
Love that book. I think it has just incredible real life connections and highly recommend it anybody to read it at any age. I think it's one of the best books I've ever read.
Okay, I'm sold. The Boy, the Fox, and the Mole, and then The Thorn of Roses? Is that I've
Throne of
seen the
Glass.
cover.
Throne of Glass.
Thorn of Glass. Great. Well, I will buy those on Amazon after the show's over. But
Yeah.
thank you for the book recommendations. And it just speaks to like softball is just one part of Cassidy Curd and one part of every athlete too. So excited to dig into that more later. But let's jump into the journey to Duke. So I have my own kind of story of where you were. We had a few touch points. For folks who don't know, I played at Duke up until 2021, and during my career there in the summers I also coached a couple tournaments with Cassidy's team, the Lady Dukes. And so I was there when you were kind of in the recruiting process, but very briefly. So would love to kind of hear your story, how you tell people, how did you choose Duke? What was your recruiting process look like? What did it look like even from childhood all the way to stepping on campus?
Yeah, so I'll go back to kind of the beginning. My brother played baseball collegiately. He was committed to the University of Florida. In 8th grade, he committed right before COVID happened, and they had a bunch of cuts. And he ended up going to play at the University of Arizona. But it was always a dream to play collegiately, and him and I always had that sibling rivalry: who's going to commit first, who's going to go where, that kind of thing. And my 7th grade summer going into my 8th grade of middle school, I verbally committed to play at the University of Central Florida. And so I was verbally committed all through or the rest of middle school and early high school. My sophomore year of high school, I decommitted from UCF. I committed under a different coach, and I think I realized I wanted to get out of Florida. Um, and I wanted to just experience something different. I mean, I'm so thankful for the rule change, both for myself and for future softball players. I think that that is way too young to make a decision like where I'm going to spend 4 years of college. Like, I was, I don't know, a 12th grader going on my official visit with a bunch of like 20-year-olds. And I was like, wow, this is crazy. But I mean, you have an opportunity like that. Like, I want to go play college softball, so I'm going to take it. So yeah, I ended up decommitting my sophomore year of high school. That's when I kind of joined the Lady Dukes and started a new phase of my recruitment process. It was definitely nerve wracking because it was kind of like, I just I'm going back out there again. I haven't been looked at by many schools since then because I've been committed for so long. I got recruited. September 1st rolled around. I got offers from Duke, and it was the first call I had on September 1st. I had a Zoom call with Coach Young, and I honestly, Duke wasn't really on my radar. It was a younger program. It wasn't even a school that I knew much about, but obviously you hear Duke University and you think high academics, really prestigious school. So I came on campus. I think September 4th I came out here, and I committed the 5th. And yeah, it was Duke since then. I mean, I came on campus and kind of just felt that sense of home. And the campus is beautiful. I mean, I don't have to preach it to you, you know it. But campus is so pretty, and I think it's the perfect balance between academics and athletics, and that was a really big goal of mine. I wanted to use softball as a stepping stone to get a higher education. Um, in no way, shape, or form did I think Duke softball would become what Duke softball is, which is just an amazing byproduct of it. And one of the conversations that I've had with Coach Young recently that I have talked about in some of these other podcasts and interviews that I've done is how teams 1 through 4 planted seeds for trees that they would never see the shade under. And I think that that was something that really resonated with me. And it's how much growth Duke softball has had in such a short period of time, and how I'm just so grateful to have gotten the offer to play here and been a part of that growth in whatever capacity I have been.
Yeah, absolutely. And to that quote, planting the seeds to a tree you never see the shade of, that was something we talked about a lot because there was like no shade the first 4 years. I mean, year 4 was the COVID year. We started the year like 23-4 and could really feel like the wheels starting to turn. But to your point, my next question was going to be like, did you in your wildest dreams expect to be in Oklahoma City your sophomore season? Like I didn't either for you all, but man, what can you how can you describe the culture that you walked into and how that kind of propelled the team to new heights of the World Series?
Yeah, I think team culture is the biggest thing that drives a team and pushes a team into postseason. I mean, you get to postseason and it's a grind. Everybody's tired. You're all kind of begging and like scratching for whatever you can get. And I didn't really understand the intensity of postseason until I got in it. And it's kind of something you can never really prepare for. You hear all season like, oh, postseason's a grind, all of that. It really is. So I think that that team culture is really what pushes you through ACCs, through, I mean, you have last year we had a massive graduating senior class, and that senior class was a big part of the growth and the buildup of Duke softball. Um, so to kind of like push through and use our team culture to build off of that and be like, hey, we're playing for these 7 girls that are graduating and leaving the program, and all that they've done in their time here, like we're playing for them. And to be able to find something bigger than yourself to play for, I think is kind of what propelled us through. And we just had fun. And then obviously playing big for Coach Young and all the things she was experiencing at home, and for her to be the woman that she is and the leader that she is. And then again, like the seniors, we had Kelly, Claire, Sarah, all of those like amazing people that just kind of helped that team culture divide. And it's really something really interesting that I've also noticed is how team cultures shift year to year, and just how like in the fall it's really just like you need to learn who you're around, you need to learn who you're with and what they respond to. Because I would say this year also we've had a massive culture shift, because you come into a culture, and if you have that many seniors graduating, there's bound to be some type of culture shift. But this year it was a massive change. We had a lot of like really hard conversations about what we wanted our team culture to be like. So yeah, it's just something that I've noticed changes year to year, and I think team culture and team environment is what pushes any team through the postseason.
Yeah, to your point, there's like seeds from, I mean, even now for you all, probably some seeds of Team One. And to your point too, like Coach Young being that like constant, she's been the constant leader, and I can't reiterate enough how incredible of a woman she is. To your point of playing for her and all the things that she juggles day to day, incredible woman. But to back to the culture, the seeds kind of go, but. To your point, it every year is so different. New personalities, new positions, new coaches. Like there's always turnover and always things changing. And so you mentioned, tough conversations this year about who are we? Who do we want to be? And I want to ask you about that. Who is Duke softball in 2025 compared to the last few years? Who do you all want to be, and where are you on that track?
Yeah, I think that last year we had a lot of conversations about what our team motto was going to be, and it ended up being unleash.
Hmm.
We had a meeting with our sports psychologist, and we talked about like 3 words that just kind of were Duke softball, and
Yeah.
we came up with we play our best when we're playing free, when we're playing swaggy, and when we're dogs.
Hmm.
Um,
Free
so we
swaggy
kind of
dogs.
we kind of took and ran with that. Yeah, free swaggy dogs, and so that was kind of the culture last year, and I think this year a lot of that still reigns true. This
Hmm.
team still, we're a really goofy team. We're silly, we're wild. We have a lot of really interesting personalities on the team, but we also have a lot of grit, and we have a lot of passion, and we want to play, and we want to be on that field and kind of prove why we're here and
Hmm.
why we've helped build this program into what it is in such a
Hmm.
short period of time, and to kind of like pull, like what you're saying, the seeds from
Yeah.
team 1, team 2, team 3, and pull that into our culture. um and I think this year we had the conversation of we lost a lot of leadership, and we lost a lot of the upperclassmen that kind of like held on to a lot of those old
Yeah.
values
Yeah.
that we were like, okay, those are still true and those are still important morals that we want to have, but we need to shape them and make them unique to this group of girls.
Yeah.
And I think that that's something that is kind of frowned upon in some programs. It's like, no, this is the culture and it's been the culture for years. But I think
Hmm.
one really unique thing about Duke softball is we're able to acknowledge like the people we're with and how the program is growing with the people that come into it.
Right.
Um, so this year we talked about our team motto. Obviously, it's Team 8, and this year our team motto is Elevate.
Hmm.
Little play on words
Yeah, I
there.
love it.
Um, but yeah, and we talked about how we want to take the field this year, and
Hmm.
how yes, we accomplished a lot last year, but we're not done, and we want to continue to elevate and build off of that. Um, and not only from an outsider's perspective to continue to elevate and climb the rankings and do all of that, like
Right.
that's a separate thing. We more so see it as we want to elevate each other, and we
Hmm.
want to continue to push each other to be the best, not only athletes but women that we can be. And that's something that Coach Young has preached from the get go. She's like, you're not just here for 4 years. I want you to carry these lessons on to the rest of your life. So we want to continue to push each other as women, push each other on in the weight room, on the field, in the classroom. Like those are values that Duke softball just really holds on to. Um, so yeah, I think the culture this year is kind of building off of last year's, but kind of taking it a next step to how
Mhm.
can we become the best people that we can be
Yeah.
together while we're here. Because you only play with the same girls for 9 months out of the year. Like that's all
Mhm.
you get.
Yeah.
And I mean, we're already what in March.
Yeah.
Like it's insane.
Crazy.
Preseason's already over. We're going into ACC play this weekend. So yeah, just continue. I think that's what we're taking away from this year is yes, we accomplished a lot, but we're not done, and we're going to continue to push and elevate and push the limits and continue to just put Duke softball on the map and whatever that looks like.
That's amazing, Cass. Like so many things that you said there is like the kind of conversations that Team One was hoping to like grow into. And what I mean by that is what you touched on of like being the best women. We initially early on before we had ever played a game had meetings with lacrosse's captains and field hockey's captains, and field hockey's captain said we go by BWalk, best women on campus. Exactly what you're describing. It's like it's not just one element, and I love that. I love the confidence piece of yeah, like this is was successful last year and that's the culture and that's how things were done, but we also have to adapt to who we are and what's best for us and elevate. Like anyone who tells you the old way is the right way is not evolving. And if you don't evolve in this game, especially, and we'll get into that too, especially in the circle. If you don't evolve, you're gonna get left behind. And so, like that, I got like chills and goosebumps. And I want to ask you about being a veteran now because you mentioned the leadership kind of hole that was left after last year. Now you sit in the upperclassmen seat. You all are that leadership now. And so two things I want to ask. Number one, what would you tell not maybe not just your freshman self, but what advice would you give any freshman coming into college of how to kind of deal with that? And then two, what do you hope to leave behind? You know, when you're sitting in my shoes 5 years, 4 or 5 years out of the program, what do you hope the team is saying then? Like I know those are two big questions, but take it wherever you want to.
Yeah, to your first point, I think looking back and what I would want to say to any freshman coming in or any of like one of the things I wish somebody would have told me more is just be a sponge.
Mhm.
And I think that that's something that we talk about a lot and it kind of goes overlooked every once in a while, but to that point, I just mean like soak up everything.
Yeah.
And I remember I talked to Peyton about this from a pitching perspective, but I was like, why wouldn't this carry into normal life?
Yeah.
But we talked about how our mechanics aren't necessarily fundamental and they're not perfect by any means, but we talked about how my mechanics are an accumulation of every single person I've ever worked with and everything that has been told to me that I've liked and picked up on. That's
Mhm.
what my pitching is. So I'm just like kind of like a big mosh pit of a bunch of different mechanics and just different things put together into one pitching motion. And that works for me. And
Mhm.
I think that that can translate into cultures and what you want for yourself in your future and academics and all that other stuff. But just be a sponge, soak up everything, absorb it all. If you don't like it, push it back out. But it's kind of just like that attitude of just accepting everything, coming into college with open arms. It's an intimidating space. I mean, coming into a university is so stressful. It's you're away from your family for the first time. You're surrounded by all these new girls and upperclassmen can be intimidating and I think a lot of the times, some of the conversations we have now a Duke softball like rule book, and
Mhm.
it's not the rule book that coach hands out, but it's one that
Right.
we've made. It's kind of the unwritten rules of Duke softball, and it's stuff that we've noticed that as you go on in your career, you kind of forget about. Like it's like
Mhm.
the little things, but you forget that that's not common sense when you get in here.
Right.
Um, so just to that point is kind of just like absorb everything, ask as many questions as you want because I know like as an upperclassman looking back now, like I love when the freshmen ask me questions. I'm like, oh, I wouldn't have even thought to talk about that with you.
Mhm.
So let's talk about it. Um, so yeah, that would be my biggest thing like as a freshman. Just be a sponge, absorb everything. You don't like it, spit it back out, but always try it. Always got it. I'm gonna try it, and if you don't like it, don't do it.
Right.
Um, but yeah, I think that that would be my biggest
Yeah.
piece of advice. And then your second question, that's a hard hitting one. What I want to leave behind, I think that's something I'm still figuring out. I think that obviously on the field, I want to leave behind that, and that's its own separate thing. But
Right.
I think I want to be like that safe place for the underclassmen, and I want to be somebody that they can come to. And I'm coming to realize that a lot of the on the field stuff doesn't matter. Um, and granted, it matters in performance and all of that, but that type of stuff isn't reflective of who I am as a person. I think the main thing that I've noticed that the freshmen have picked up on in conversations that I've had is response to adversity, how you carry yourself off the field after a tough outing and after a good outing. Like,
Mm-hmm.
if that's so different on both sides, then what exactly are you promoting? Like,
Mm-hmm.
if you're coming off after, it's great to come off after a great outing and be happy and talk to the freshmen and be like, oh, this is what worked for me, whatever. But after a bad outing, like, what are you telling them?
Right.
What, like, how does that change? And I think that's more reflective of who you are as a person than anything else. And obviously, I'm not saying you can't be upset about anything,
Right.
because that's just not realistic. I mean,
Your competitors.
yeah, but it's more so in, like, how you treat one another and how you treat yourself. And that's something I'm still battling with, and I'm sure we'll talk about it later. But it was something that hit me after the South Carolina game, and I mean, I faced some adversity that I hadn't necessarily had to yet. Um, so yeah, I think when I want to, looking back, when people talk about Cassidy and Duke softball, I just want them to say that, yeah, I was a competitor and I was a dog on the field, but also I was somebody that they could go to. I was open. I was an open book. I was vulnerable, and that's something that our team, it's really special about this year's team. And a lot of conversations with Coach Young, we talked about it, and just how big of a role vulnerability plays into the softball space. And
Mm-hmm.
it's not, it definitely doesn't happen in every program, and it's something that we're still working on and growing with. Um, but Coach Young has just kind of put out this new culture of vulnerability, and just, like, she's really raw with us and she comes to us as she is, and we
Mm-hmm.
accept her as that. And we now know that we can come to Duke softball, and we can walk into that stadium, and we don't have to flip a switch. We can be who we are, and we're always met where we're at, and we're always respected for that.
Mm-hmm.
um so yeah, I think that that's something big that I want to continue to foster in the Duke softball environment, is just that sense of vulnerability. And I mean, the I talked to Charlie about this, and we talked about how the distance from the head to the heart is the longest 10 inches in the world. And it's really hard to make that connection between your head and your heart.
Mm-hmm.
But if you give your heart to your teammates, then you're gonna get that back from them. And I think that that's something that goes beyond the scope of Duke softball or softball as a sport. Like, we're all people, we're all humans, and we're all trying to. Nobody's been here before. We're all trying to figure it out for the first time.
Yeah.
And I think that our sense of community and vulnerability, and being able to just be like, I'm like, I go up to Jada, I'm like, Jada, I'm not with it right now. Like, I'm not here. I'm hurting. I'm feeling all these different things. I don't know how to navigate it. And Jada's like, okay, I see you, I hear you. Let me help.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just something that I never would have thought would come from my collegiate softball experience. So yeah, that's kind of my little rant on.
Wow. That, I
Yeah.
mean, wise beyond your years, and you're like keep leaning into that. And I know it's hard to not be for any athlete, be results oriented and want the success. And I love what you said of like, yeah, your response, it's your, your poster board for what's mentally happening. And that doesn't mean you can't be competitive and wear your heart on your sleeve, but to the point of, what you want to do to impact your teammates, being outside of the game now and still being involved with broadcasting, that's what I remember with my teammates. It's not, were they an All American? I don't care. It's, were they there for me in those moments? Were they the Jada Baker who said, "I got you. Like, let me put my arm around you"? And were they someone not only pushed me as an athlete, but also as a woman on campus? Right? Like, those are the things that I took from Duke softball more than anything else. So keep leaning into that. And for you, let's dig into the softball side now, because I think it, to me, what you're saying really translates what you do on the field and how you are on the field really reflects like who you are. And that is like an energetic dog, but also warmth to your team. Like, so many people ask me, I watch so much Duke softball. They're like, "Oh my gosh, that pitcher, the lefty, like you can tell she's just with her team. Like, she's yelling with her team." And it is so evident. And it's something I love watching about you as an athlete. But I want to dig into the evolving piece. And so last year, you make it to the Women's College World Series. On that journey, one thing that was getting Twitter all riled up was two words: effectively wild. And you had said, you and Peyton talked about the amalgamation of all of the coaches and your own style. Cassie, do you describe yourself as effectively wild, or what do you make of when people call you that nowadays?
Yeah, I think I'm going to be fully honest and transparent. I do think there was a truth to
A
that.
time? Yeah.
My freshman year for sure. My
Yeah.
freshman year for sure, and a little bit into my sophomore year. But I think that with my evolution and working with Coach Young and that kind of thing, I think that a lot of the times we joked and it was like I'm more wildly effective than I am effectively wild. Um
Oh, I love
but
that.
but I do think there was some truth to that in the sense that Coach Young liked to call me a thrower, not a pitcher,
Mhm.
my
Mhm.
first 2 years. And I think that's true. I think a lot of the times like I really grew into being able to command. I mean, anybody who watches my
Yeah.
film, like I throw up in the zone. I throw a little bit on the harder side, so I can kind of get away a lot with speed. And I think something that hit me hard my sophomore year that I had to work through is scouting reports are out. Synergy is out. If you look at my spray and my heat map on swing and misses, all out of the zone.
Yep.
And that's just what it is. So if I'm a hitter and I see that, I'm taking until you throw me a strike. And that was something that I wasn't used to because I was used to like hitters swinging at my misses.
Mhm.
And that started happening less and less throughout my sophomore year. And through conversation with Coach Young, I was frustrated and I was like, gosh, I'm not getting what I got my
Right.
freshman year. And she was like, Cassidy, people know who you are now.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't matter. Like you need to change. And kind of just gave me that tough love, like push forward. And it's like, yeah, you had success. That doesn't matter anymore.
Right.
What are you gonna do moving forward to evolve, better yourself, and continue to have success in different ways?
Mhm.
And I think something that kind of has resonated with me a little bit more this year is my comfortability and ability to be okay having success in different ways.
Mhm.
And I think that that was kind of a hard, not a hard pill to swallow, but something I wasn't used to because on the field, I'd be like, God, like I'm a little more tired and I'm not spinning the ball that sharp. I'm not my balls aren't getting as much break as they usually do. I'm not getting swings and misses. So
Mhm.
now I'm trying to be perfect and I'm trying to spot a pitch perfectly in the zone. And I don't throw well when I try to spot perfectly in the zone and I'm getting hit hard. So what can I do to change my game when my spin isn't what it usually is? And like how do I get hitters out in different
Mhm.
ways? Because I mean at the end of the day, I'm not going to be able to rely on strikeouts 24/7.
Right.
And that's not the point of the game. I
Right.
have 8 people behind me, like, what they're not there for decoration, like, they're there they're there to be a part of the game. Um, so I think that, like, really leaning into that and, like, understanding they have my back just as much as I have theirs, and they want me to succeed just as much as I want them to succeed.
Mhm.
So I think that acknowledging that it's okay to have an off day and be like, "Okay, you know what? I'm gonna work on getting miss hits today, and I'm gonna work on jamming hitters and throwing successful pitches that do different things that I'm
Yeah.
not used to." So that was kind of a big piece that clicked for me early on in this preseason. Um, but yeah, I don't think that that's true anymore.
Yeah.
Granted, I still throw a lot of balls out of the zone, but I think now they're a lot more intentional than they were in the past. And I talked with Coach Young a lot about how it's okay to have misses
Yeah.
and it's okay to miss high in the zone. What do we do to build off of that? Because sometimes
Right.
I would miss and I'd be like, oh God, like what do I do? But it's like, okay, you missed a spot, but that was still a pitch nonetheless.
Yes.
So what can I do to see that pitch? Okay, I missed a screw out and I hit a rise in. But the hitter didn't know it was a miss.
Yes. Yes,
So
exactly.
so what can I do to use that rise in? I was like, okay, you know what? Now they saw something hard at their hands. Now I'm gonna go fast low in.
Yep.
Um, so I think not thinking as misses are the end of the world, and it's just okay, that's a setup pitch, and now I'm going to
Right.
use it to continue and go further and deeper into the count.
Right.
Um, but yeah, I do think I didn't love it last year because it did kind of have a negative connotation, you know,
Totally.
like nobody's saying you're effectively wild, and it's like that's not a positive comment.
Right.
Um, but I mean, I do think there was some truth to it in the sense that like I did get success on wild pitches.
Mhm.
But now I think that they're intentional and I if I do have a wild pitch, so does everybody else. Like, it
Yep.
happens, and
Yep.
I'm gonna go back at the hitter with something else.
Yes.
So yeah, I definitely think that that kind of like motivated me. If anything, I was like, okay, you guys think I'm effectively wild? Like, I'm gonna throw 90% first pitch strikes. Like, somebody
Yeah,
who's effectively wild
exactly.
doesn't do that. So yeah, I think it was good for me to hear that because I was like, all right, like that kind of stuff just kind of motivates me.
Mhm.
But yeah, I think it was a double edged sword in that way.
Totally. So we can officially softball fans, we can officially flop that or flip that to be wildly effective for
Heck yeah.
2025. And I agree. I also think that like the fans and yeah, anyone doing their homework on the games who might call games, like they need to evolve too. You're not the pitcher you were as a freshman. And I think one of the, if any young pitchers are listening or any honestly hitter, um, to analyze the outcome of the pitch as opposed to analyzing the strategy and judging it based on that. Like you miss up and in, you were supposed to hit up and away or low and away. Okay, but where can I go from there? Right. I love that. I think that's so underappreciated. And also for young pitchers out there, like to your point, Cass and Peyton went through this too. It's like what got you success your freshman season will be the opposite thing that will get you success in your sophomore and then your junior. So I want to touch on the South Carolina series. Obviously, a tough one. I don't know the last time Duke was swept at home, but you all got swept against South Carolina, which South Carolina is a great team. We'll obviously get into that, but how do you now having hear you speak about adversity, bouncing back, your mental fortitude? How do you and your team bounce back? Of course, you have a dominant victory against Elon last night, but going forward, what was the message that you all took from that South Carolina sweep?
Yeah, I'll talk about from a team perspective and then
Yeah.
kind of go into my individual experiences from that. But I think as a team, it was like, okay, we came off a high. We rolled into South Carolina, and not obviously none of us expected to get swept.
No,
Nobody goes into a
no.
series and is like, "Oh, we're gonna get swept." Like we weren't thinking that.
Right.
Um, so for that to happen and to kind of get like punched in the face, it was like a reality check, and it was like, all right, like they came to play,
Mhm.
and I can't commend South Carolina enough. Like they came ready, they came scrappy, they were
Yeah.
fighting,
Prepared. Yeah.
they were prepared. Yeah, they came with a game plan and they
Mhm.
executed that game plan well. And I think that one thing I noticed about South Carolina is their ability to adjust game plan inning to inning. They changed their strategy based on how we changed ours, and
Yeah.
it was kind of like that perfect chess match. It was like we do one thing, and South Carolina was like, okay, I match you and I raise. Like it was like
Yeah.
a it was like a
Yes.
perfect back and forth. Um, so I think as a team, like it would have been really easy to hold on to that, and
Yeah.
I think that we did a little bit over the weekend. It was like dang, we're getting beat. Like
Yeah.
not only are we losing, but we're getting beat.
Yeah.
And we kind of talked a little bit about that mentality of playing not to lose versus playing to win. And I think a lot of the times we were kind of on the defensive and we were like,
Mhm.
oh, try not to lose, try not to lose. And we didn't play Duke softball this weekend. And I think that's really all it is at the end of the day. Um, and we're able to look at that and kind of acknowledge it. But I think the thing I'm proud of most of this team is our ability to flush that.
Mhm.
Yeah, it sucked. Yeah, it was bad. But one thing that I noticed when we all were at the field on um, Tuesday, when we all came to the field yesterday,
Mhm.
laughing, joking, like nothing ever happened, having normal conversation. Nobody was hanging their heads about the South Carolina game. We we were moving on. We moved on from it. And I think that that's something that's a little bit harder to do in this level of softball just because
Mhm.
of how easy it is to hold on to that kind of stuff and let it linger in the back of your head. But I think we learned from it. We watched film. We talked about how that wasn't Duke softball, and there really wasn't much else to harp on it from then.
Right.
It was it wasn't clean defensively or offensively. We didn't get our best swings off on best pitches, and I think that that was something we're able to just be like, okay, tip your hat, South Carolina, great series, like you guys got it. Maybe we'll see you guys again in the postseason, but it doesn't matter. We're going to continue to go about our schedule and keep fighting. And I think that with softball and the schedule that we have, we don't have time to sit and harp
No.
on South Carolina.
No.
We have Elon, and then this weekend we go into ACC play and we're playing Clemson. We don't have time to sit here and think about all the shoulda, coulda, wouldas in that weekend. And I think it's important to talk about them and learn from them, but to harp on them and to continue to kind of berate something, it's like we all already felt that loss. Like
Mhm.
that it hit us hard. It was
Yeah.
a tough weekend. Um, So there's no point in holding back on that and harping on it. So I think that's what I'm most proud of as a team is our ability to come to the stadium the next day. Nobody's hanging their heads. It wasn't any one person's fault. Like, it was a collective loss, and we take the losses as a team just as much as we take the wins as a team, and we
Mm-hmm.
continue to move on and move forward from that. And then I think that outing for me personally was tough. I don't think I had struggled that much mentally in a collegiate softball aspect as I did this weekend. And I mean, I'm not scared to admit that now. Like,
Mm-hmm.
that was probably the hardest thing that I've had to go through in my college softball experience. And I was kind of battling with myself after Friday. I think one thing that I realized is softball is one of the only sports, especially from a pitcher's perspective, where you put yourself out there 3 days in a row.
Yeah.
Baseball, go out Friday, you have a bad outing, see you next week.
Yep.
Any other sport, one game a weekend. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's really in softball, like, you have to have that short-term mentality. You're playing the next day.
Mm-hmm.
And I think after Friday, in my head, I was like, oh, chalk it up to a bad outing. Like, is what it is. It was kind of like the Florida game. And I was like, you know what? I'll come back
Yeah.
tomorrow and be better.
Yeah.
And that was kind of the mentality that I went in. And then Saturday I'm pitching and I don't feel like myself.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that I haven't necessarily felt. Like, physically I've dealt with the ailments and the pain and all of that, and I've been able to pitch through that. But to not feel like myself mentally on the field was
Right.
something that I I just wasn't used to, and it terrified me. It scared the hell out of me. I was talking to Tessa and Jada, and I was like, I don't know what's wrong.
Yeah.
And I almost went into like a panic mode. I was like,
Yeah.
guys, like, my mechanics feel off, my timing feels off. I'm so in my head. And as we talked about earlier, I mean, I never play good when I'm in my head. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I play my best when I'm connected with the defense and I'm talking and communicating. Um, so yeah, and then Saturday comes out. I again don't do well. Sunday comes out. I have 2 solid innings, feel good. Then the third or then another inning comes around and I walk the lead off in 4 pitches. I'm like, ooh, I don't really do that.
Right.
That's a little concerning.
Mm-hmm.
Then I walk the next batter in 4 more pitches. I was like, okay, I'm 8 pitches in and I've walked 2 batters. And then from that point on, I again had never experienced this, so I didn't know what to do, but I just like mentally shut off.
Yeah.
And I told Coach Young came out and she was like, I want you to work through this. And in my head, I was like, okay, like, I'll work through it. Like, I'll try to throw a strike. And then all I was trying to do was throw a strike. And at that point, I was practically throwing BP to a team like South Carolina.
Right.
So it was kind of like I overcorrected so much to where it was just, I wasn't having success. And I, I had never felt the way I had after that game.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually had a conversation with Coach Young yesterday. She was like, "What do you need this week?" And I was like, I need some inning. I need to throw to. I don't care if it's our
Yeah.
hitters live. I don't care if it's in a game. I need to throw to a live batter. So she let me get in 2 innings against Elon yesterday, and that felt good. But before the game, I said, "Hey, Coach Young, can I talk to you?" And I pulled her in the team room and or in the conference room, and we start talking, and I'm like, I don't know what's wrong. I feel off, like, mentally I'm not there.
Right.
And she was like, I know sometimes it's hard to remember, but I did play college level softball for quite some time. And she was like, whatever you're experiencing, like, I promise I have gone through at least once or twice in my career. So that kind of gave me some reassurance. And I told her, and I was like, I'm hesitant to say this because I don't want it to change how you see my competitiveness on the field.
Yeah.
I don't want you to think I'm telling you this and I'm making excuses whoa, remix. I'm making excuses for performance or anything like that. I don't want you to be hesitant about putting me in the game because of
Right.
what I'm telling you is going on in my head. And she said, Cassidy, I'm not going to do that. Like, I want you to be vulnerable. I want you to tell me what you're feeling, and I want to help you.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay. I was like, I feel terrible. I don't know what's wrong. I go out there. I think about failure before I even have the chance to fail.
Mm-hmm.
I go up there and I usually go up there and I don't care. Like, I'm out there throwing the ball and I'm having fun with my team. I think one thing about pitching is I think pitching and hitting, I think those are the 2 most isolating parts of softball. You're in a circle by yourself. You're controlling the game every single pitch. If you don't throw a strike, nothing else can happen from there.
Right.
And same thing with the batter's box. Like, you step in that batter's box, you're alone. Coach can't help you. The other 15 people in the dugout can't help you. You're in that box alone, and if you don't do your job, you walk right on out, and the next person comes in behind you. Um, and yeah, kind of just having that vulnerable conversation with Coach Young and telling her like, I don't know what's wrong. Like, I don't know. I've never been like this mental head case before. Um, and she was like, okay, we'll take a step back. Like, what do you feel when you have success? And we walked through it a little bit. And she was like, go out there, have fun. She was like, go down. All we're telling you to do, go play simple softball. Go have fun. Go do what you do when you have success. Go feel good. And we'll roll into the weekend and go from there. We also talked about how it was kind of the perfect time for that to happen.
Yeah.
And like, we're still in preseason. We haven't even gone into ACC play yet. Like, it was a good time for me to kind of face that. And I told her, I was like, I feel like this is a turning point for me. And I can either use this as a, okay, this is what I'm feeling now. Like, I want to build off of that and grow into season, or like this could be my downfall of the season. And I think that fear is the most inhibiting part of softball. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that fear that I had of, oh my gosh, I don't want to have that like junior slump year where like I don't want that. Like, what do I
Yeah.
do? Um, so yeah, I think being able to have those conversations with Coach Young and my teammates, and I mean, God, Jada, Tessa, Anna, Amina, Dee, Kyrie,
Yeah.
Sophie, being able to talk with those people about what I was experiencing and knowing that they weren't going to see me less for my performance on the field.
Yeah.
And they were like, Cassidy, because I think a lot of the times, as much as we try not to, perception is a big part of the game,
Yeah.
and how you're perceived by the media, by your team, by your coaches, by fans
Family.
for that
Yeah.
matter,
Anyone.
family, anyone. It's such a big part of the game. And I think that was something that I was concerned about. I was like, I just came off of a great weekend. Like, I did really well. And now I'm trying to be perfect and I'm trying to live up to all these other things, which I've never done before.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm failing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I think being able to talk to the girls in the dugout and be like, guys, I'm struggling. Like, and they're like, Cassidy, we don't care. Like, we don't see you any differently. Yeah, we want to win, but we all can do stuff better. We all can do stuff differently. Like, we're not holding that against you, but we need you to flush it and we need you to keep pushing through the season.
Yeah.
Um, and to kind of acknowledge, this is the last point I'll say on it, but to be able to acknowledge that I'm not alone in the field and I'm not alone in that. And the way I do this thing where I like to just like I bear the burden. I'm like, those 3 games were on me, which
Yeah.
in reality, I think the hitters kind of brought it to me and they're like, that's not true. Like, there are so many things that we could have done differently defensively, offensively. Like,
Right.
it's not a one person sport.
Yeah.
So yeah, just to be able to have those conversations with the team, I think was able to help me like mentally shift and will help in preparation for this weekend as well. So yeah, that's kind of my rant on the South Carolina series.
Well, Cass, thank you for sharing that because,
Yeah.
like, that is really hard to share and be vulnerable about. But that's something I bet every single level, like high level athlete, honestly, D1, D3 doesn't matter. If you play softball or any sport for your whole life, you've dealt with that. You know, you've dealt with those moments and it's so humbling and incredible to hear you say that because anyone outside of this world or inside softball but outside of this conversation would never think that you think that way or you have those moments of fear and doubt and all those things. I got a book for you if you're interested. Ryan Holiday, it's called The Obstacle is the Way, and it's pretty much like he's a modern day philosopher. He uses a lot of old philosophy and he talks about like what if the obstacle is the moment that you then not course correct but that just drives this incredible growth, right? Like what if the obstacle and the adversity is the way? And so I feel like honestly this is weirdly timed. I started that book this morning. You should read
Oh my
it,
god.
but it's the way. And for folks listening, you know, this is a little bit longer of an episode for us, but I mean, absolute gold. We're going to have you back on as well. We're not even done yet, but thank you so much for sharing because it highlights what is so difficult about our sport. Like I feel like I've always imagined football, yeah, there's can be mental struggles, but like you just go hit and you go like I mean, it's obviously really challenging, but softball and hitting and pitching, it's like you just get so internal. For me, my sophomore season had an incredible season, like did really well, and then that next year, like that exact thing of trying to be who I was. I'm trying to be amazing. I'm trying not to make mistakes. It's on me, extreme ownership and the fear and the doubt. And then as soon as I step in the box, I'm thinking about what happens if I fail. And it's like, well, just simplify the game. Just, it's like, it's not that easy, right? And all you can do is chip away and fall back on your process and fall back on all the success that you've had and realize like one game, one series, one sport doesn't define who you are. You are absolutely incredible. Thank you so much for sharing that. And wow. So I mean, we could have talked probably for 2 hours,
Yeah.
but I want to dig into the listener questions to end the show. So you had the most listener questions we've ever had. So we're going to do this kind of like shotgun style. I'm going to throw out a question. Some of them might cause you to go maybe a little longer, but just quick little like rapid fire answers, and we'll go from there. So first, I do want to say, someone said, I hope one day I can meet you in person. You're my favorite player ever and my biggest role model. And I think so many people likely say that about you. So, okay, who is your biggest fan and biggest supporter?
Ooh, my brother. My brother's my biggest fan and biggest supporter. He is one of the reasons I started playing softball, and he's the first phone call I give after every single game. My
Oh,
brother.
honestly, and your parents are the pep rally
Oh my
kings
God,
and
yeah.
king and queen of Duke softball. So shout out to them.
Yes.
What is your favorite thing aside from softball that you love about Duke?
The first thing that came to my mind is Woo. The food at Woo is
It's
incredible.
amazing.
It's one of the best dining halls, I think, in the country.
If you're ever in
And
Durham, you should go.
yeah,
It's
absolutely.
worth it.
Yeah.
What do you yell to catchers between pitches most often?
I think I yell great job most.
Great
And
job.
Kyrie's like, why are you telling me great job? All I did was catch it. And I was like, it takes two to tango. Like,
Yes, let's go.
you're killing it.
Exactly. Okay, home or away games?
Home, always.
Starting a game or coming in as relief and shutting the door?
Ooh, I have to say starting.
Favorite non-softball memory from Duke?
Ooh, that's a good one. Um, I would say, God, we do this thing at the beginning of the year, and it's kind of like, I don't want to call it freshman initiation, so off the record, I'm not going to say that. Um, our first get together of every year, it's kind of like a get to know the freshman type of thing, and
Are you gonna say hot seat?
yes. Hot seat still lives on, but
Hey,
we've evolved it into like a Kahoot, a team Kahoot.
I love that.
So we do a team Kahoot, we do hot seat, which is where we can ask the freshmen any questions that we want, and then we also turn it into like we all have dinner together, and it's just a big like team night that we all just like get to know each other, and it always happens in the fall, and then obviously it turns into whatever it turns into. But yeah, that's my favorite Duke softball. It's what I look forward to every single year.
That's awesome. The fall is the most fun and exhausting at the same time. But so how old were you when you started pitching?
I started pitching a little later. I think I was 11 or 12
Okay.
because I
Favorite
caught
pitch to
first.
throw?
Rise ball.
Okay. Other than rise, actually, they wrote other than rise.
Oh, curve.
Favorite uniform combo?
All black.
And then your prediction, where does Duke end up at the end of 2025 season?
Oklahoma City.
Oklahoma City. Cassidy Curd, thank you so much for joining the show. Let's do this again. You have the
Please.
mic, you got the headphones. We're gonna run this back. Clemson coming up this weekend. You'll see Kelly Torres, your former catcher. Kelly, we didn't mention this, but Kelly not co-hosting the show today. Next week she'll have a Clemson or someone down there with her to have the show. I will not be on. But Cass, can you please share a message to Kelly Torres, your old catcher and now your rival at Clemson?
Kelly Torres, I love you more than anything, and you know that. This weekend, that will be put on pause, but I will love you again as soon as the game is over, just for 7 innings. For 7 innings, but then after that, I love you more than anything, and I cannot wait to see you.
Well, Cass, thank you so much for joining the show. Good luck this weekend. Good luck the rest of the season. We will run this back. I'm certain of it. Appreciate you so much. And Softball Speakeasy fans, where can they follow you, Cass, on all platforms?
All platforms are Cass Curd.
Sweet. And then is there an NIL link on Duke's website or no? Is that a thing?
There is in my Instagram bio.
Okay. So yeah, you can reach out for NIL I guess, inquiries
Yeah,
on
4
Cass's
p.m.
Instagram. Support our girl. Cass, amazing as always. Thank you so much for the time. We love you.
Thank you so much for having me.